goodness, Moses! I think we are in outer space! Meow. You must be an astronaut!
Нет, нету! Я русский! Cosmonaut!
Well, my name is Mrs. Twigg.
After the performances, lots of the children like to come up and just tell their life story to this little, she's actually a root, but we call her Mrs. Twigg anyways.
You know, help! S-O-S, help!
Her hair is the roots that would have been going down into the ground, and then her nose is actually a twig that's snapped off, and she actually has little knots that are her eyes, and she was like that when she was found. She just was waiting to go on stage.
Be careful, stand back! Be careful, carnivorous plant!
The Carter family Marionettes were the founders of the Northwest Puppet Center. Years back, we were a touring company, but for 17 years now, we've operated a permanent facility here in Seattle with a season of performances that we create ourselves.
Cosmonaut!
Oh my, a Russian cosmonaut!
Cosmonaut!
Oh, how exciting!
My parents, Chris and Stephen Carter, they began doing puppets separately when they were kids.
Здравствуйте!
When I was a teenager, I started carving wood. In high school, the best teacher in the whole school was Mr. Payne, the drama teacher. And Chris and I come from, well, it was a medium-sized town. We're childhood sweethearts, by the way, so we've been living together forever, essentially. So gradually I started to meld sculpting with my theater work, and actually did start doing Punch and Judy shows. I tried a shadow puppet play in high school. Chris had done some puppetry when she was a young child, so she'd had some experience with puppetry. Yeah, we both went off to university. We went to the University of California. It was an experimental atmosphere at the college in those days, so they were quite open-minded about any type of experimentation. So my senior thesis got me my BA was a puppet show, actually. As a family, we traveled with our puppet show. We toured in Europe one year about 1980.
The family idea dates back hundreds of years from when the first itinerant puppet troupes began, and there were families of puppet players that would travel around bringing their shows from town to town. And so this is an age-old tradition that we kind of follow in the footsteps of. My son is starting to perform and help out too. He's 3.5 now, but he's already crazy about puppets and helping out. He's kind of interesting. He's a 3rd generation puppeteer on my side and a 7th generation puppeteer on my wife's side. So there's a family tradition on both sides.
So we lived for 2 years in Romania. From there we were able to travel around, and we especially like the Sicilian style of puppets.
This specific style is from Palermo, and the character here is Ruggiero. He's the Prince of North Africa, and if he sees a dragon or anything, he'll pull out his sword. Hop, hop, hop. Since my parents are the founders, I've been performing since I was little. As soon as I could climb up on stage, I was helping out, and as I grew up, I'd start getting more important roles. The public in the U.S. isn't too familiar with a lot of the puppet traditions found around the world, and so there's a whole array of things that we can share. This kind of hand puppet's sometimes called a glove puppet too, because it fits tightly to your hand. You have a finger in one hand, a thumb in another, and a finger for the head. This here is a old Italian hand puppet. This kind of puppet's known as a burattini, and this is found up in northern Italy mostly. This is a brighella, and this is actually a puppet from about 1880 or so. We have performances, of course, that are based on dramatic works, but then there's also marionette operas, which are actually operas with musical scores and opera singers and all sorts of things. And there's education programs that we do, museum exhibits, and our archive library. So we have a full range of programs that we do here. Now here's a different style of puppet. This is a rod puppet. So it's got one that holds up the puppet and turns its head, then one for each of its arms. This is a character from Indonesia. The next kind of puppet is a shadow puppet. Wherever they're cut out, the light will shine through, and wherever it's not cut out, you get a shadow. So here's how it looks on the screen there. And these shows used to go on all night long. They do them outdoors, so they had to wait until the evening. This is the Turkish form, not the Greek form of Karagyosis. And he's a little bit different because he's translucent. So you can actually see the colors that shine through. And he can tip his hat there. He usually talks with a funny voice. Karagyosis, whoop, oh, yeah. There's some tricks that you can do with puppets, but with marionettes, you always have to worry about getting them tangled. This here is Hanuman, the monkey god from India, and he's pretty good at being acrobatic here. Let's see, one thing he can do here is a somersault. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. And the trick to doing somersaults and flips is trying to keep all the strings on the same side. This one here is actually an old vaudeville style, and about 100 years ago, even up here in the Seattle area, they used to perform with this type of act. This is a special trick skeleton. This here is something that's called as a model theater or a toy theater, and in the days before television, you'd find these in lots of people's homes, so that if you had guests over for dinner, after dinner, they'd perform what might be playing in the big halls of the day.
Oh, be careful. I think he's getting angry. I didn't know a machine could get angry. Oh my goodness, and he's definitely getting bigger. I know. Let's run! Hurry!
My favorite part was when the house blasted up into space because all of the 3D action.
They use different types of puppets. So we're going to see shadow puppets next time. And it was the tick puppets and then the string puppets. And
once I made a puppet out of sticks and leaves, and it looked kind of like Mrs. Twigg.
There were some times when the parents were laughing, I think, a little more than the children were laughing.
Oh, I beg your pardon?
I didn't think that was in spell check.
I like the robot.
perfect for boys.
I liked about the puppets was the little green guys that went.
I think they're one of the most imaginative groups in the city. It's each show was a delight and different.
It was a little scary for some parts. The stupid machine was scary, right? We had to go to the bathroom for that part.
Yes.
Yeah, but Mrs. Twigg was funny, and the spaceship was funny, and all the kids laughed, and the kitty cat was real funny.
Yeah, but I didn't like the robot.
He didn't like the robot, but the rest was a great show. It was fun. Everybody laughed and had a good time.